you hear a Led Zeppelin song in a car commercial, is it still rock and roll? Or is it just another jingle? Welcome to Vinyl Saints. Let's talk about the price of success. I'm JC3. I have Big Joe here. And this is our second episode of Vinyl Saints, where we talk about the greatest rock, classic rock there is. And this episode, we're going to be chit-chatting about the price of success, or in some other words, if some people are quote-unquote sellouts. So, let's get into it. So, Dad, what do you define a sellout as far as classic rock or in music in general?
Don't define anybody as a sellout. Making money is what it's all about. You really want to make that kind of money. We should all be in a position that, whatever we do now, 25 years from now, somebody's interested in it to try to sell their product. I don't consider it selling out at all. I consider it, making money. Now, if you want to talk about selling out, I mean, you can go with the one commercial. It's a commercial for a sugar drug, diabetes drug, Ozempic. Okay, Pilot.
Ozempic. Yeah, you're talking about that.
The band Pilot actually restructured the song and reworked it. And again, that song is almost 50 some years old. But what they did was, when they got the money to do it, they restructured it and they altered the song. Now, if you want to consider that a sellout, all right, I'll give you that. But if you're just going to add a song from a catalog from a classic artist, I don't consider that selling out at all. They're making money. They're going to make money. And a lot of these artists from the early 70s are not that well off. They still have to tour. They still have to do whatever.
I think we're talking about two different things here. I think when I define a sellout, at least for me, is that a band who had one way of musical and one way of doing their music, and then you go with the time or the changing of the times. Like, for example, for me, Foreigner changed their music from the 70s to the 80s.
And how was that?
Well, if you listen to Foreigner in the 70s, they're more of a dingy, not grunge, but dingy rock band, and then you go to the 80s and I Want to Know What Love Is. I mean, you go to these ballad type 80s music and they made a lot of money on it. I'm not going to deny that fact. But Foreigner did change up their musical style. Another band that I can give an example, Kiss. Kiss kind of sold out twice, if you think of it. I mean, granted, one, they didn't really make any money on the second one, but Kiss, they did a disco track in the 70s because it was popular. In the 90s, they did a whole grunge album with Carnival of Souls. Now, granted, Carnival of Souls didn't really make any money because they didn't release it, and it wasn't really a success. But to me, that's selling out because this is what's popular right now. So let's sell out. Let's try to make some money on what it is. Now, again, when you talk about doing something like that, I think that kind of compromises your artistic integrity just a little bit.
I can't say yay or nay on that one. I know what you mean by selling out that way. Yeah, okay. I'll give you I Was Made for Loving You. There was like, what, 78, 79? 79, I believe. Okay, yeah. Did they try something different because they try to fit in? Maybe. It's not like they did a whole complete album of it. Now, I know you had this thing with this Foreigner thing. I totally don't believe that at all. Foreigner, actually, when they started, they weren't really a dingy rock band, but they were a rock band. If you listen to some of their stuff, Star Rider, I mean, this stuff is like amazing stuff, complex, complicated music, and yet they were never really lumped in with the Led Zeppelins of the world, or stuff that they were lumped in more with the Styxes and the REO Speedwagons and Kansas and whatever. That's where they were lumped in. Now, did they go? If you really wanted, what they did a ballad. A ballad was done by just about everybody in the 80s. Everybody in the 80s did ballads. Rock ballads became huge at the time. So I can't consider it they sold out. What they did was they went maybe in a slightly different direction. That was Foreigner 4, I believe it was, which is, if you really look at it, Foreigner 4 is a lot of people's favorite Foreigner album. Not me, but a lot of people will cite that as their favorite Foreigner album. So did they sell out with that? I don't believe they sold out. What I do believe is they went in a slightly different direction with a ballad, and the ballad worked. Did it work? It's still working. You know what I mean? That's all.
No, I know. But see, like, I don't know. To me, it's just a little sketchy. Like, okay, so here are some other examples of selling out. Ready?
Come on. Yeah.
The Rolling Stones, then a counterculture blues rebels, now stadium tours with over 600 plus tickets, $600 plus tickets, massive merch deals. The controversy with them is their corporate sponsored tours, branded by Budweiser and Amex. So, have they earned the right to monetize after 60 years? I think that's the question everybody asks. And you're gonna say yes. I mean, they're complete and utter rock gods at this point. Still touring, and
Yeah, the Rolling
if
Stones could actually put together an album of toilet bowl flushing, and it would go platinum because people love the Rolling Stones. And let's not forget, you're looking at the Rolling Stones starting in 1964 or 62, whatever it was. It's 2025. Whatever they do from here on out, or for the rest of their career. I mean, Mick is in his 80s now. You know what? They've earned that right. They literally have earned that right to do what they want to do. Is it selling out? All right, the corporate sponsorships, yeah. But when these people are throwing millions of dollars at you, and you're looking at the twilight of your career, you're going to jump at it. I mean, I would. And you want to call me a sellout? I'd smile and go, "Yep, that's me, a sellout." That's just the way I look
right.
at it.
So here's another one. Ready? We have a couple examples of this.
Yeah,
Fleetwood Mac. Back in the 70s, they were a British blues band with raw musicianship. Now they are a sleek radio pop juggernaut after the Rumors album. Did success water down their experimental roots? Or did they just find their best version?
Okay. I'm going to clear that one up as well. It was not after the Rumors album. When they put out the first Fleetwood Mac album with Buckingham and Nicks on it, that album had 4 or 5 really, really great soft rock tracks. They took the band and they went in a completely different direction. It's not they didn't sell out anything. They went in a different direction. They weren't Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac. They weren't doing songs like Hypnotize anymore. This is a completely different band with Buckingham Nicks writing most of their music at the time. And I mean, I can't remember the name of the one track. I think it's like the third track in on that album. It's just unbelievable what they did with that band. So I don't think they sold out. What they did was they just took it in a different direction, and they kept it in that direction to this very day. Now, unfortunately, we lost Christine McVie, and to me, that was always my heartbeat of that band, going well back into the back into the 60s. She was just, her voice was second to none, and her songwriting, I loved every minute of it. So that's my take on that.
This next example is near and dear to our hearts, and because we are Jersey rockers, not Jersey rockers, but we are from Jersey. Bon Jovi, then Jersey rockers, borderline glam, now adult contemporary rock. Accusation played it safe to stay in the top 40 rotation. The selling out moment shifted from leather to flannel in the early 90s without a real change in message. What do you say to that?
Again, I'm going to say to that, because of conditions with this band, look, the stuff that they did up to New Jersey, and maybe that wasn't metal. So if people want to put that in the metal category, that's not metal. That was pop rock.
Glam metal. Glam metal has its own category. It's glam metal.
I'm not gonna lump Bon Jovi with glam metal. I'm sorry, I can't do it. You want Poison? I'll give you that.
Poison was
glam metal.
Who else do put in?
Cinderella.
Poison, Cinderella, Rat.
That's all glam metal. Bon Jovi just had the long hair. Yeah, they have some freaky costumes. I mean, John, even to this day, will cringe when he watches Runaway because he got a purple leather pants on. And, and again, young kid just going out there. If you really want to say something about Bon Jovi, the early Bon Jovi was all over the place. But Bon Jovi's music was back then, should have been more like it is now. All right, his influences are Southside Johnny, Bruce Springsteen. These are his. They were never. Did they were lumped into that category? So did they go along with it and play along with it? Yeah. Were there stuff heavier and edgier back then? Yes. John developed as a songwriter, and a great songwriter up to now. Okay, so I can't say that if that's a reverse for me. I think Bon Jovi's stuff early on was stuff that maybe if he had to start over again, he wouldn't do that. Now, granted, it made him a lot of money, and of course, New Jersey was a great album, but Slippery was even better album. And you started to see at that point the writing is a little bit more sophisticated, more John Bon Jovi like. And then to me, the more he went on, post what's the album that he released in like 96?
You mean 95? You're talking about These Days?
No, These Days that's where John Bon Jovi super polished his stuff on that album. If you were to go to
Keep the faith.
No, there's one more after that. It really brought him back into the. It brought him back into the groove there. I can't. Well, anyway, from that on, they were edgy. They were very edgy, but yet they were very melodic in what they did. Their music, as far as their stuff was storytelling, was not so much guitar driven. I mean, he had some tracks that were "Have a Nice Day." Great writing, Joey. I mean, that's a great track. You know,
That's not Have a Nice Day. That's off of shit.
well, whatever. I mean,
it's early 2000s.
these when he shifted off to that, you could just see the direction he was taking the band in, and he never missed a step, never lost a beat. He had the fans; they went crazy for it. They loved it. He did that pseudo country album that he did. This Left Feels Right.
Nope.
He wasn't afraid to take a risk, but the risk was never far from his soul. And I know, his type of music is the stuff he's playing now. That's Bon Jovi.
Well, the next couple are very interesting. The next one is Aerosmith. Back in the 70s, they're hard blues rock with edge. There go Toys in the Attic. Now they're MTV darlings post Walk This Way remake. The biggest critique is I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, written by Diane Warren, not the band. Debate, was this reinvention or desperation on the part of Aerosmith?
A lot of both. And I lived through it, so I can tell you straight out. When they came out, the last known album that was really from the original five, you had Aerosmith featuring Get Your Wings. Then you had Rocks. You had featuring Dream On, Get Your Wings, Rocks, Toys in the Attic, personal favorite of mine. Absolute brilliant album. And then they had the fifth one. I can't remember the name of the fifth. It was the white cover. Anyway, those 5 albums defined Aerosmith for me. Now going forward, they had all the inner turmoil. The 2 people left. You had both guitarists left at the time. They brought in Jimmy Crespo and Rick Dufay. They really, the fans wouldn't eat it up. They couldn't do anything. They wouldn't sell out. They wouldn't sell out arenas anymore. They had their serious drug problems. When Walk This Way was remade by Run DMC, or as I like to call them, Run BMW, they actually brought Aerosmith back. They brought Aerosmith back, but Aerosmith then went out and hired different writers to help them write and create. They kicked their drug habits. They were, it was an ongoing thing with that. So that helped them a lot. And then they crafted some crafty pop tunes along with other writers. Okay. So was it desperation? They had to be, because they were losing everything. They were basically, their career was in the toilet. And then when they came out with Done With Mirrors, the comeback album from I guess it was 84 or 82, whatever. That album was tremendous. And it made people notice Aerosmith again. And they went on. They went to do Pump. They did all them other albums after that. But it wasn't that Aerosmith of the 70s, fueled by drugs and fueled by shit like that. So, and I often say when a band comes out and they're loaded and they're shit faced and they're high all the time and they put out these killer albums, when they kick that habit, they become mellow, they become softer. Yes, it's going to happen because you're not in the same state of mind. And how I'm going to tell you that is, what's his name from Twisted Sister, the lead singer, Dee Snider. Somebody once asked him, how come you're not writing the really tough songs anymore? He goes, well, it's kind of tough to write songs, songs about being hungry and starving when you're sitting around, and you're sitting at your pool in your flip-flops, 80-degree weather, and you have 4 or 5 cars in the parking lot in your driveway. He goes, not hungry anymore. So that changes things. It changes their perspective on life.
True. I'm not going to deny that. All right, so the next one is U2, your favorite band. So then they were a political post-punk band with The War and Joshua Tree. Now they are now iTunes album is force-fed to millions. Literally, it was force-fed to millions. I don't know if you remember that. Their last album, well, I don't know if that was the last album. I don't know if this was a couple years ago. They basically had a deal with Apple, and Apple basically force-fed that U2 album onto everybody's iPhone. You could not delete it. It was in your Apple Music, and that was it. You could not get rid of the U2 album in your phone.
That's pathetic in its own right. Look, I'm not gonna sit here and deny that they got a great following. I'm not gonna say that. But
that's the quote unquote selling out moment. Multiple partnerships with Apple. They did the Super Bowl halftime show, and the question basically is, can a band stay relevant and radical at the same time?
No. Well, you know what? It is today's
Turn off that flash on the. There you go. Just click it.
I don't know even how to describe that because to me, I'm not a YouTube fan at all. I don't like their music. I don't dislike the members of the band. I just don't. They were never my cup of tea. Do they have a great following? Yeah, they do. They appeal to a lot of people. They did, and that's fine for them. But as far as staying radical, were they really ever radical, or were they just socially conscious? Were they like, let's save the trees, the bees, the whales, the snails? That to me, and that's not a bad thing if you want to help out society. I get it, but it just to me, that all that turned me off. And again, the Edge to me, he gets way too much credit for being this great guitar player. I've never heard him shred. I've never heard him do anything other than, retro, repetitive, stuff. And if I'm offending anybody, I'm sorry, but it's just my opinion.
It's all right. You can have your opinion. That's just what the show's about, isn't it? The next one, ready? This is going to be interesting to your take on this one. Genesis, the Phil Collins era of Genesis. Then they were progressive rock pioneers with Peter Gabriel. Now they're 80s chart toppers with a pop sound. Their critique argue Phil Collins turned art rock into yuppie background music. Massive global success brought prog ideas into the mainstream. And that changes the music when you do progressive into mainstream because then it changes the sentiment.
All right.
So, was Genesis and Phil Collins selling out?
I think what happened was you lost the Peter Gabriel writing in there at that point. So there were no more of that prog rock stuff. That because early Genesis, was a super prog band. I mean, you could lump them in there with the greatest prog bands of all time, right? So when they lost that, when Gabriel left, okay, I believe that Phil Collins wrote differently than him. Although when the first album that came out after Gabriel left, and then there was 3, it was called. They tried to carry on a little bit that music, but it really was never the same. What they did was they mixed socially conscious music. They skimmed the top of socially conscious music along with new ways of promoting their music. They wrote differently. The lyrical content was different, and it was really, really catchy. A lot of their stuff, a lot of the early stuff, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, brilliant album, brilliant. But they went different in a slightly different direction. And as time went on, it went different. It was different and different and different. They progressed on the different parts of that. They just never carried on that Peter Gabriel legacy. Yeah. And that didn't make it bad. They were successful. They were very successful.
Is it selling out, though?
Is it selling out? When you can't do something, when you don't know, when your talents are not what they used to be, when you lose the talent in your band and you can't go on as that band anymore. They could never have gone on as that prog band. They don't have the leader of that made it a prog band. They don't have that. So how can you continue selling out? Did they sell? Did they go differently because they had to survive? Yes. Is that technically selling out? All right. You want to argue it? That's an argument. But I don't think they did it to say, we can't do anything else. So, or we're not that prog band anymore. So we should just quit. That to me, it's either quitting or going in a different direction. If you want to be labeled as a sellout, that's a risk you take. I personally don't think it was a sellout on Genesis' part. I just think they had to go in the direction they were. You were down from a 5-piece to a 3-piece, and you still had a talented 3-piece. Mike Rutherford, phenomenal guitar player, phenomenal writer, one of the best writers ever in rock music, So I don't know. To me, I don't think it's that much of a sellout, but a direction change.
We have a couple more. Santana. Then he was a Woodstock legend, a spiritual guitar god. Now he produces radio hits with pop features, ergo Smooth with Rob Thomas. The Issue. Supernatural brought Grammys and money, but lost his old fan base. Is it fusion or formula? And did he sell out?
Right. With Santana, when you say somebody was a darling at Woodstock, what you're really saying, what you're telling everybody is the man is old. The group is old. The man is old. That group never kept consistently the same members. Santana was just that, Carlos Santana and sidemen. Okay, when he did that album with Rob, when he brought in Rob Thomas and he did Smooth and all that, but he did a collection of different singers on that album. Was it selling out? The part of selling out with him would be to sell his music to commercials and stuff like that, which he did. He sold out a lot. But again, it's his prerogative, having garnered that much of a following over the years. Was he always going to maintain that Carlos Santana-esque from Woodstock? No. You want to know why? You take Greg Rowley out of that, who wrote all those hits. All right. Santana then had to lean on other people to do what to write his music. Santana is a gifted, great guitar player. Okay. But I don't think that when he lost Greg Rowley and Rowley moved on to Journey, I think at that point, you got to say he did what he had to do to survive. He took his talents to another level, and look, he earned the name Carlos Santana. So you can take him from Woodstock and plug him into, Madison Square Garden in 2025. You're still going to get people to go see him because he's still going to play those hits. Did he sell out with the car sales and the car commercials and the commercials for ice cream and all the other shit he did? Yeah, without a doubt. But he could do it.
All right. The Eagles. Then they were country rock storytellers. Now they're synonymous with high-ticket reunion tours and luxury. Criticism is lyrics like "you can check out anytime you feel" or "anytime you like." It feels ironic now. The notable moments is $100+ million reunion tour dubbed "Hell Freezes Over." Were they selling out?
Yes.
Because
yes,
that is a sellout to you. Okay.
To me, that's a sellout because to me, they didn't need all that. The Eagles had a phenomenal fan base. Now, again, is it the right to do it? Absolutely. Make as much money as you can. But to me, when at that point, I think the music was slightly compromised. The reunion album was just basically a hodgepodge of old stuff, and that's not taking anything away from them. Glenn Fry was a genius. May he rest in peace. Don Henley, I believe, is also a genius. But I also believe that they had great players in that band. That band, when you had Joe Walsh, tremendous writer, tremendous, not going to say singer, but tremendous writer, tremendous guitar player. Okay. Timothy B. Schmidt, yeah, to me, had two of the best fucking songs the Eagles ever did. One on a reunion album, then I can't tell you why. Randy Meisner was also brilliant. Very smooth voice. He went to Poco when Poco sent over Timothy B. Schmidt. And then you had, who was the guitar player? I can't think of his name, who's not with them anymore. Oh, Don Felder. Don Felder, from all accounts, is an asshole with an attitude. I don't know. But the guy could write. And Don Felder was the best guitar player, in my opinion, that ever graced the stage with the Eagles. The guy is unreal as a guitar player.
Well, yeah, and then
then you have
Don Henley and Glenn Fry, who are probably gifted, writers to begin with themselves.
And
they are great writers.
They had just enough tension between Don Felder. No, sorry. No. Just enough tension between Glenn Fry and what's his name, the drummer there,
and Henley
and Don Henley to make it work. They didn't like each other at first, but they made it work. When they first started, they were, Jackson Browne wrote for them. They all lived together with Jackson Browne. So, in my opinion, take it for what it's worth, they had just enough oomph against each other. But then when it came time, they had all that oomph against Don Felder to get him out of the band because they didn't like some of the stuff he did. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I don't know.
And then you go.
Did they sell out? Yeah.
Later down in the line.
Yeah.
Then you go later down the line with when basically, when Glenn Fry died, they bring in Vince Gill, who again is another talented writer, talented country singer. And
got a long history, Vince Gill.
And, on and on it goes. And they're continuing to tour even till this day without Glenn Fry and doing all that stuff. So that's a whole different podcast where the band should continue after, after important pieces of their band should pass away. We'll talk about that in another episode. But here's a couple.
May they tour forever. I mean, if that's what's going to make them happy, and as long as there's somewhat original members in that band, let them tour forever.
All right. So here's one that might piss you off because it pisses me off when they said this because I don't really see it as selling out. I just see it as a change happening. The Beatles. Early Beatles is leather jackets, city clubs. Later Beatles Magical Mystery Tour, mass merchandise, Apple Corp. Accused of commercialism with the Hello Goodbye marketing push, Yellow Submarine merchandise line, and Let It Be rooftop concert as a PR move. But they also pioneered album as art. So what is your take? Beatles selling out, yay or nay?
Beatles were offered millions, if not billions of dollars to reform for a tour. Several tours. They never did it. They could have easily taken that money, mailed it in, and done it. But they didn't. because they didn't want to tarnish the legacy of the Beatles. They didn't want to revisit the arguments. They wanted everybody to, look at 8 years, 9 years of the Beatles. Everybody thinks the Beatles were on for 30, 40 years. They weren't. Okay. They went on, they changed with the times. Did they sell some of their music? All right. They sold for some radio jingles somewhere along the line. I can't even remember.
Michael Jackson also bought it.
Well, Michael Jackson screwed him over when he bought the catalog, and then he's the one who was actually selling out, wasn't the Beatles. Beatles would have never have done that. Don't forget too, the Beatles were one of the last groups along with Grand Funk Railroad to get their stuff put on CD. When CD came out, you couldn't find a Beatles CD. Grand Funk Railroad, same thing. Couldn't find a Grand Funk Railroad. Couldn't do it at all. And what happened was over time, pressure mounted. They had to sell. And then, it took them to another level. Not the Beatles per se, but the sales of the albums. When you can sell 100 million copies of, the albums all over again, that's brilliant marketing. That's what you're supposed to do. But to me, the Beatles never sold out. If anybody sold out, it would have been Michael Jackson that did it. Or if you want to bring it on, I mean, Yoko Ono. She had too much to fucking say. But she was his wife. She's going to get the right to say it. And that's just the way it goes, unfortunately.
All right, we'll get on to the next one. Justice for Napster. Initial underground thrash band with no radio, no view ethos. Turned to mainstream with the Black Album. It was produced for Mass Appeal. And then they sued Napster in 2000, seen as anti-fan. The counterpoint, though, is their survival and evolution. And they still tour and produce heavily. So, Metallica, in your opinion, are they sellouts?
I'm not going to say a sellout per se in the same vein that you want me to say. What I'm going to say is their music had evolved a little bit differently. They were getting along. I mean, they were starting to see cracks in the mirrors here because, Hetfield was really, really into drinking, really, really bad. The band wanted to go on at all costs. He needed a break. And did they tone it down a lot, make their music work for them? Yeah, that's what I think they did. I don't believe they sold out at all. Not I really don't. But that's just me. They got clean and sober. Their music sounds rougher now. I mean, their music sounds really, really... They're seasoned musicians is what I'm trying to say. And we lost them. So I guess I got to carry the show alone now. Joe, what do you think? I don't think of much. All I can tell you is this much. If you disagree with me, that's fine. We're allowed to disagree. That's what it's all about. But you know what? Please stay nice in the comments. I take enough heat. I don't need it anymore. Now, you can go back and get that. That's
okay.
Long story short, I don't think they sold out. I think they basically changed their ways about themselves, got clean and sober, and went on, became parents and whatever. It's hard to be
well,
it's hard.
They also changed basis in between that also. I mean,
yeah, a few times too.
The dickhead that left went to form, I think it was Megadeth, right?
Well, no. You're talking. Here we go. He's gone again. But now he's back. Not Megadeth. You're talking about Dave Mustaine. He wasn't the bass player. He was.
Yeah.
He was actually the second guitar player before they brought in Kirk Hammett. The first bass player was killed in a bus accident. The second bass player they brought in, Jason Newsted. I like Jason Newsted. I thought he was an animal. He really is an animal on bass. But then when they got rid of him, I don't know. I know they brought in the last guy that they got there now. I don't know. He looks like he's like a Cochise or an Indian or something. I don't remember his name.
Okay, we're going to go to the next part on that one. I'm not going to put out how people look like what they are. Green Day.
I don't know anybody. Fuck Green Day.
Green Day. Pop or punk.
Fuck Green Day.
They went from Gilman Street punks to arena rockers. Backlash after signing the to reprise for Dookie. Critics say they abandoned their do-it-yourself punk rock roots. And then supporters say that American Idiot brought political punk to a new generation.
I'm not.
Obviously, you say fuck Green Day.
You're talking to the wrong guy when it comes to Green Day. I'm sorry. By the time Green Day got around, you know what? They should have been named Been There, Done That. Because their music, people labeled Kiss when Kiss came on, oh, there's 3 chords and a whole lot of screaming. This is somebody like they took U2 and they added them to Green Day and they put a lot of distortion to it. To me, I just never understood.
He's getting a phone call, folks.
Yeah, they're going to have to put that on voicemail. To me, I never understood any of that. To me, it's just a lot of noise. Billy Joe Armstrong had just got an attitude about him I can't stand. Like he's the savior of punk music. Dude, you know what? Go away. Okay? Just go away. Okay? Message to you, Billy Joe. Go away. So
hey, if he does watch this, then hey, more power to him. I appreciate you for watching our podcast. But
not me. I don't want you as a viewer. Take a walk. That's just
Okay, we're
it's not that. First of all,
pushing
I
away
don't.
viewers.
I can't. It's not pushing away the viewers. Okay, I don't like.
No, just pushing away potential viewer. Now we have one less.
His friggin' attitude pisses me off. He comes on like he wants to rail on Trump, then he wants to rail on this one, and then he does this, and he does like, what gives you the right? What gives
All
you the
right.
right to just open up on people? Shut up.
All right, so let's get to the what I like to call the encore, which is the vinyl verdict. See what I did there? See what I did there, people? The
Nice.
vinyl verdict.
The vinyl verdict, like it. Go ahead.
It's the vinyl countdown. No. Okay. So the roundtable style discussion, which is just you and I. I mean, I'm the roundtable apparently. So who truly sold out versus who truly adapted? Who, in your opinion, even if it's not to the people that we talked about today, who, in your opinion, do you really believe, besides the Eagles, sold out?
As far as using their music for commercials or
Or changing their musical style for what's popular to make money. And basically, you see what I'm saying is like, so you have an artist who is known for this, like let's give a final example here. And maybe you'll disagree with me. Billy Joel. Billy Joel in the 70s, we all know how Billy Joel was in the 70s. In the 80s, changed his style, changed his hair, changed his whole entire way to music. Regardless if it was good, it was good. I'm not going to say it wasn't. But to basically be in the same time period as everybody else. You know, he cut the hair, he wore the suits, he did this the MTV music videos with the pop 80s type of style.
I'm not going to sit here and go off on anybody that did pop 80s videos or did 80s videos. You had to. It was a different time. You had to market yourself. Did his music evolve? I don't think he sold out at all.
So you don't think that MTV changed musical integrity for people?
Integrity? No, I just think I believe it gave them a different platform to go out and market their music. Because before that, you had to rely on radio stations. You had to rely on the disc jockey, and if the disc jockey didn't like you, you weren't getting airplay. All right, or you had to have a monster hit that they couldn't ignore. When MTV came around and they started putting videos together, you got to see what your artists look like. You got to see what your artists were all about. And that was either a yay or nay for you. It actually was their way of getting more and more people to buy their product. I don't find that selling out at all. I find that quite brilliant, actually, going with the flow. I'm going to give you an example of a band that sold out, and they're one of my favorite bands of all time, Grand Funk Railroad. And the reason I'm going to tell you this is because Grand Funk Railroad, when it was just Mark, Don, and Mel, okay, Mel Schachter, Don Brewer, and Mark Farner, they were as big for a time as the Beatles. For a brief moment, they did many nights at Shea Stadium. They were arena rock before arena rock was out there. They were a brilliant band. Along comes, after that's all over and they start to dwindle a little bit, along comes Frank Zappa and says, I want to produce an album for you guys. So they did. And the first song that they put out was American Band. And then the second song was a little known, it was a big hit in the 60s for Little Eva, The Locomotion. So they did that, and their music kind of went down from there. It was still, decent music, but it was different. And they were trying to get more airplay. So they were trying everything they could to get back to where they were, and it never fully happened. Later on, when Mark Farner leaves the band, they bring in Bruce Kulick. They bring in another guy who thinks he's Mark Farner. All right. And they still tour today, but they just never reached that level. They just went downhill from there, and they never regained that level of that they had. So did they sell out short term into long term? Absolutely. And I love Grand Funk. I don't like what they're doing now because to me, that's not, without Mark Farner, I'm sorry, that's not Grand Funk Railroad.
So do you think it's possible to achieve massive success without compromising yourself?
Absolutely. It's done every day. Bon Jovi did it. Okay. You know another guy who did it? Again, Bon Jovi's best friend there, Southside Johnny. Southside Johnny don't have a major following like a Bon Jovi does or a Bruce Springsteen. He's not the greatest writer, but he's got something about him that he's going to do it his way, and he's going to just rock out, and that's going to be it. And you're either going to love it or not. I personally love some of his stuff, but I also dislike some of his stuff. It's not like he's got a blanket coverage for me where I love everything he does. Same thing with Springsteen. Springsteen's got some great albums. If he learned to keep his big fucking mouth shut, he wouldn't alienate so many people.
We're not talking about the political.
But the point I'm making is, So Southside Johnny never compromised. You go out there today, he's the same Southside Johnny he was in 75.
Okay. Okay. So, but the final quote we're going to maybe debate on. I don't know if it's really a debate or not. If you agree or disagree with it, which is fine. So, one thing that a lot of people hear in music, a lot of people hear from stuff like that, is the quote of either sell out or fade away. Do you believe in that?
I would believe to a point that if most bands try to regain their former glory by doing whatever they could do, that would be selling out. If they come to the point of realization that we just don't have it anymore, we can't do this anymore. So now we're going to go play. We were a heavy metal band, but now we're going to do pop jingles. We're going to rewrite our music for pop jingles just so we can make money. That to me, again, you make as much money as you can in life. However, or are we going to go in a completely different direction and put on suits and stuff and try to be somebody else? That would be selling out. A lot of groups don't know how to do that. A lot of groups get older, they get set in their ways, they don't want to go on, they don't want to do things, and they want to just live off their laurels. And maybe with the advent of these tours that they put together for these oldies bands, maybe that's helping, that we're not selling out, we're not staying relevant, but we're making money because people still want to hear these songs. But with that comes a problem. With that comes a problem with some of these groups don't want to tour anymore, but they want to keep their songs going. Is it selling out? I think the question would be, is it selling out to lease your name to 4 or 5 individuals to call them something else? And I can give you a laundry list of bands that don't have any original members, but they're contracted by the original members to continue as they were. Grassroots, not an original member in Grassroots. There hasn't been an original member in Grassroots since '68. And Rob Grill came in, and he was the last guy that was there, not from the beginning, but he was there from maybe 2 years in. He handpicked the band, the group that he was with now, he handpicked it in the 90s because there was a variation of different groups that he toured with, all under the name The Grassroots, kept the music going, released some albums. So that to me would be selling out the name. But unfortunately, Rob Grill died. The group that's together now, his wife owns the name. She's continuing it. I like it in a way because I like the members of I like what they bring. They keep the music alive. If they were saying, memories of the Grassroots or something like that, I'd feel a little better, but you pick and choose your battles. You know what I mean?
So to end this, did they sell out or did they just survive? Some traded distortion for disco. Others swapped ideology for industry. They were called sellouts, posers, puppets, but they also became legends. It's easy to point the finger from the cheap seats, but it's maybe harder to hold a mic and your integrity when the stage lights hit. Because the truth is, selling out isn't always cashing in. Sometimes it's staying in the game long enough for the world to catch up. We're the Vinyl Saints, and until the needle lifts, we'll keep asking who changed and who just got louder. Spin responsibly, worship the riff.
Out, peace, homies. Stop recording.
Stop recording.